Daniel Harper was halfway inside the open maintenance compartment of a quantum relay when the machine insulted him. "Unauthorized organic interference detected," said the relay in a flat, mechanical voice. Daniel pulled his head back and stared at the cracked speaker mounted above him. "I'm not unauthorized. I have a badge. Badge expired 11 days ago. That feels unnecessarily personal." The relay drifted silently against the violet glow of the Andromeda Nebula, its enormous circular frame turning 1 slow degree at a time. It had been abandoned for nearly 3 centuries, yet several of its internal systems were still active, which Daniel considered both impressive and deeply suspicious. His company had sent him to restore a basic communication channel. Nobody had mentioned the ancient symbols glowing beneath the dust, or the fact that the station appeared to be watching him. He floated back toward his repair shuttle and checked the diagnostic panel. Every sensor displayed a different warning: navigation failure, temporal distortion, unknown intelligence detected, coffee temperature critical. Daniel reached for the cup first. "Priorities," he muttered. The shuttle's artificial intelligence, Myra, illuminated a blue holographic face above the console. "Your heart rate has increased by 32%. My coffee is cold." "That does not explain the heart rate. You don't understand human suffering. I have analyzed human history. Cold coffee ranks surprisingly low." Before Daniel could answer, a golden pulse traveled around the relay's outer ring. The symbols carved into its black metallic surface awakened one after another, forming a language that his translation system could not identify. Space beyond the cockpit window rippled like glass touched by invisible fingers. Myra's hologram flickered. "Daniel, I recommend immediate withdrawal." "Agreed." He grabbed the controls. The engines refused to respond. "Less agreed," he said. A sphere of light formed at the center of the relay. It expanded without heat, swallowing the stars behind it. Daniel watched in silence as a corridor appeared inside the light, stretching into a region of space that should not have existed. At its distant end floated a green and gold planet surrounded by rings of crystalline satellites. Then a voice entered the shuttle. It did not come through the speakers. It spoke directly inside his mind. "The path has opened. The chosen one approaches." Daniel slowly turned toward Myra. "Did you hear that? I detected no audio transmission. So either I'm hallucinating or space just invited me somewhere. Statistically, hallucination is preferable." The relay released a burst of energy. Daniel's shuttle shot forward. He shouted. Myra listed safety procedures nobody had time to follow, and the coffee cup rose from its holder and struck Daniel on the forehead. The stars stretched into white lines. Gravity folded, returned, then briefly seemed to reconsider its career choices. The journey lasted 6 seconds. It felt like falling for 6 years. When the shuttle emerged, Daniel found himself above the unknown planet. Cities floated in the upper atmosphere, built from silver towers and translucent bridges. Vast vessels shaped like wings moved between orbital stations. Below them, forests shimmered with bioluminescent blue leaves, and rivers of pale light curved across the continents. Hundreds of ships surrounded Daniel's shuttle. Myra counted them. 187 military vessels. "Do we look threatening? Our primary weapon is a welding laser." "So no." A transmission appeared on the main screen. A woman stood in a chamber of polished crystal. She looked human at first glance, but her ears were long and graceful, extending through strands of dark silver hair. She wore armor marked with glowing royal symbols, and her expression suggested she had never once found an unexpected visitor amusing. "Unknown vessel," she said. "Identify yourself." Daniel straightened in his seat and tried to look like a respectable representative of humanity rather than a technician with coffee on his forehead. "My name is Daniel Harper. I repair communication equipment." The woman stared at him. "You entered the sealed territory of Elithura through the gate of succession. I was actually trying to fix it." For the first time her expression changed, only slightly. but Daniel saw disbelief pass across her face. Behind her, several officers whispered urgently. One of them lifted a scanner toward the screen. The instrument began producing a sequence of tones. Every person in the chamber fell silent. The armored woman looked at the result, then at Daniel, then back at the result. "This cannot be correct." Daniel raised one hand. "That sentence has followed me through most of my career." Far below, inside the royal palace of Lyssara, ancient machines were awakening beneath floors that had not opened for 7,000 years. Crystal rings rotated around a dark central chamber. Forgotten stars appeared in artificial skies, and Princess Serenya, daughter of Queen Lyssara, stood before a golden projection of Daniel's face. She had never seen him before, yet she recognized him instantly. For years she had dreamed of those uncertain brown eyes, that crooked smile, and the strange sense of calm that surrounded him even when everything was clearly going wrong. A palace attendant stepped closer. "Princess." Serenya did not answer. Her long ears trembled slightly as the projection turned. At that same moment, Queen Lyssara entered the chamber. Her silver-white hair fell over ceremonial robes woven with living starlight. She studied the human image without surprise, though something old and guarded moved behind her emerald eyes. "So," the queen whispered, "the law has finally remembered us." Serenia looked at her mother. "What law?" Lyssara did not answer immediately. Above the planet, Daniel's shuttle was being escorted toward the palace by enough warships to conquer a small solar system. He watched them through the window and sighed. "Myra." "Yes." "Remind me to renew my badge. I believe that is no longer your most urgent administrative problem." Daniel expected the royal palace to have doors. Instead, the landing platform dissolved beneath his shuttle. He had just enough time to grip the armrests before the vessel descended through a cylinder of transparent light, passing through layers of floating gardens, defensive rings, and vast chambers carved inside the mountain beneath the palace. Hundreds of armed guards watched from suspended balconies as the shuttle settled onto a circular floor of black crystal. Myra's hologram appeared beside him. "Atmosphere is breathable. That's encouraging. Gravity is 12% lower than Earth standard. Also encouraging. 23 weapons are currently aimed at your chest. Less encouraging." The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss. Daniel stepped outside wearing his faded maintenance jacket, tool belt, and the expression of a man who had accidentally arrived at the wrong wedding. The Elytherans stood taller than most humans. Their faces were strikingly familiar, but their long ears curved backward in elegant points, decorated with thin chains, gemstones, or glowing bands that pulsed with biometric data. The armored woman from the transmission waited at the foot of the ramp. "I am Commander Valles, head of the Queen's Guard." Daniel Harper, head of regretting decisions. Valles studied him without smiling. "You will surrender all weapons." Daniel removed the welding cutter from his belt and handed it over. She turned it in her hands. "This is a weapon. It repairs pipes. It can cut through military armor. Only if the armor has a warranty problem." One of the younger guards failed to hide a laugh. Valles looked at him, and the sound died immediately. Daniel was led through a corridor lined with living crystal. Images flowed across the walls as they passed. Wars fought among stars, queens crowned beneath artificial suns, fleets disappearing into wormholes. In several scenes, a human-shaped figure stood beside an Elytharan ruler, but time had erased the face. "Who is that?" Daniel asked. Valles did not slow. "A myth. Your myths have impressive interior decoration. They also have a habit of killing curious visitors." Daniel nodded. "Then I officially dislike history." They entered a chamber beneath the palace, where dozens of scientists surrounded a machine shaped like 3 interlocking rings. The rings rotated without touching, creating a field of golden particles in their center. Princess Serenya stood beside it. Daniel recognized her immediately from the ceremonial broadcasts Myra had intercepted during their descent. Yet the recordings had failed to capture the quiet intensity of her gaze or the way her dark hair framed her long ears. She wore no crown, only a pale silver garment threaded with shifting constellations. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Serenia looked at him as though he had stepped out of a memory. Daniel glanced behind himself. "Is there someone more important standing back there?" "No," she said softly. "Only you. That is rarely good news." A faint smile touched her lips. Commander Valles noticed it and looked more disturbed than she had when Daniel arrived through an impossible gate. Queen Lyssara approached from the far side of the chamber. The room fell silent before she spoke. She moved with controlled grace, her silver-white hair bound by a narrow circlet of luminous metal. Her long ears carried no jewels, only two small black devices that Daniel guessed were neural interfaces. "Daniel Harper," she said, "do you understand where you are? In a palace beneath a mountain on a planet I didn't know existed. Do you understand why you were brought here? My current theory involves broken machinery and extremely bad luck." The Queen's eyes shifted toward the rotating rings. "The gate did not malfunction, it selected you." Daniel's smile faded. "Machines don't select people without instructions." "Precisely." Lyssara raised one hand and the chamber darkened. A holographic star map unfolded above them. Lines connected distant systems, forming the shape of an ancient symbol. The Gate of Succession was built 9,000 years ago by the founders of Elithura. It opens only when the royal bloodline faces a choice that will determine the survival of our civilization. Daniel looked at Serenia. "And I'm involved in that choice." The machine answered before anyone else could. A beam of golden light crossed the room and surrounded Daniel. Symbols appeared in the air, scanning his bones, blood, neural patterns, and genetic history. Myra's voice sounded through his wrist device. "Daniel, the machine is accessing data below the molecular level. Can you stop it? No. Can you pretend you can? I can generate reassuring noises." A pleasant chime played. Daniel stared at his wrist. That was insulting. The ring stopped. A single image appeared above the chamber. Daniel and Serenia standing side by side beneath a crown of stars. Murmurs spread through the scientists. Valles stepped forward. "This proves nothing. Ancient systems can degrade." The machine projected a second image, a fleet burning above Elithura, then a third, the palace shattered, the planet dark. Serenia's face lost its color. Lyssara remained still, but her hands tightened beneath her sleeves. Words appeared in the air in an extinct language, then translated themselves into both Elithuran and human speech. The heir must choose freely. The chosen must stand before the hall. The crown must honor the bond. Daniel read the message twice. "I'm sorry," he said. "Did the ancient machine just arrange my marriage?" Serenia turned sharply toward him. "It said I must choose. It did not say I had chosen." The machine flashed. A final line appeared. "The choice has already begun." Daniel sighed. "Of course it has." Queen Lyssara looked toward the sealed doors at the end of the chamber. Beyond them, the royal families of 12 systems were already arriving for the succession gathering. Princes, admirals, dynastic heirs, and political predators, all of them expecting Serenia to choose one of their own. Lyssara studied Daniel for a long moment. "Tomorrow," she said, "you will enter the grand hall." Daniel looked at the armed guards, the ancient machine, and the princess who seemed caught between recognition and fear. "What happens there?" The queen's expression became unreadable. "My daughter will decide whether the galaxy remains as it is. And if she chooses badly." Lyssara turned toward the image of the burning fleet. "Then there may be no galaxy left to complain about it." Daniel did not sleep. The royal guest chamber was larger than his apartment on Mars, but its elegance made him suspicious. The bed adjusted itself to his body temperature. The ceiling displayed a real-time map of the galaxy, and a silver tray kept offering him fruit that changed flavor depending on his mood. The first piece tasted like honey. The second tasted like burnt metal. Daniel stared at it. "That feels judgmental. Myra's hologram appeared above the bedside console. Your stress level is elevated. I'm being presented to 12 royal families as the possible companion of a princess I met 6 hours ago. 7 hours. Thank you. That makes it much healthier. The chamber doors opened. Princess Serenya entered without guards. She had exchanged her ceremonial clothing for a dark blue robe woven with faint lines of moving light. Her long ears were bare now, free of the delicate ornaments she had worn beneath the palace. Without the royal display around her, she looked younger though no less composed. Daniel stood. Should I bow? Do humans bow? Usually when we are frightened or trying to retrieve something from the floor. Her mouth curved slightly, then remained standing. She approached the transparent wall overlooking Elithura's capital. Floating towers drifted above forests of luminous trees, joined by bridges that assembled and dissolved according to traffic. Farther away, enormous orbital rings moved across the night sky like silver moons. My mother should not have brought you into this, Serenya said. I was under the impression the ancient gate handled that part. She could still send you away. Can she? Serenya looked toward the stars. No, Daniel leaned against the edge of a table. That sounded less like royal authority and more like a very expensive trap. For a moment she said nothing. Then she touched the wall. The glass darkened and hundreds of tiny drawings appeared across its surface. All of them showed the same face, Daniel S. Some were simple sketches, others were detailed holographic portraits. In one, he stood beneath a broken moon. In another, he was surrounded by burning ships. Several showed him smiling beside Serenya, though the expression in her drawings seemed more confident than the one he currently wore. Daniel stepped closer. How long have you been making these? Since I was a child. He turned to her. You drew a human you had never met. I believed you were imaginary. That is comforting. I've often suspected the same thing. Serenya did not smile this time. The dreams began when I was 8. At first I saw only your eyes, then your voice. Later entire places, a red desert, a narrow apartment filled with broken machines, a repair station near Saturn. Daniel's humor vanished. Those places were real. No Elithuran could have known them. You saw my life, pieces of it. Why didn't you tell anyone? I told my tutors. They called it royal anxiety. I told the palace physicians. They scanned my mind for disease. I told one ambassador. What did he say? He proposed marriage. Daniel blinked. That seems medically unhelpful. This is why I stopped telling people things. She changed the projection. A new image appeared. Elithura's grand hall crowded with nobles. Daniel stood at its center while Serenya faced him. Behind them, Queen Lyssara raised one hand. The image fractured before showing what happened next. I always woke at this moment, Serenya whispered. Daniel studied her reflection in the glass. Do you believe the future is fixed? No. Our scientists say time contains probabilities, not certainties. But the gate of succession was built by beings who could see those probabilities more clearly than we can. And they decided to involve a satellite repairman. Perhaps they admired your qualifications. My strongest qualification is surviving poor management. A quiet laugh escaped her. It was brief but genuine. Then the palace shook. The lights dimmed. A deep vibration rolled through the floor, followed by the distant sound of defensive alarms. Myra appeared instantly. Multiple warships have entered the system. A tactical display replaced the drawings. 12 fleets had formed around Elithura, each marked with the crest of a royal house. One formation moved out of its assigned orbit and began deploying armed drones. Serenya's expression hardened. House Varanth, friends of yours. Prince Caelor has requested my hand 17 times. Persistent. He threatened to blockade the palace after the 14th refusal. Less romantic. A transmission forced itself onto the wall. Prince Caelor appeared wearing black armor edged with red energy. His long ears were decorated with gold rings, and his handsome face carried the confidence of a man who had never been told no without later invading something. Princess Serenya, he said, Rumors claim a human has entered the succession chambers. She stepped forward. Your spies remain impolite. My fleet will withdraw when the human is surrendered. Daniel raised a hand. I'm in the room, by the way. Caelor's eyes narrowed. This is the creature. Daniel looked at Serenya. Creature feels harsh. Technician was available. Caelor ignored him. You would dishonor 7,000 years of royal blood for this. Serenya's long ears tilted slightly backward. Daniel had already learned that this meant anger. My choice has not been made, she said, but it will never be you. The prince's face tightened. Outside, his drones accelerated toward the palace shield. The first impact turned the night sky white. The transparent wall rippled but held. Myra displayed a countdown. Shield integrity will fail in 9 minutes. Daniel looked at Serenya. Does your palace have emergency maintenance access? She stared at him. We are under attack. Yes, and attacks are usually inconvenient for machinery. Another explosion shook the chamber. Daniel grabbed his tool belt. Show me the shield controls. Serenya hesitated only a second before leading him into the corridor. They ran through the palace while guards rushed in the opposite direction. Above them, the ceiling transformed into a tactical map filled with hostile ships. You understand our technology? Serenya asked. Not remotely. That is not reassuring. It has never stopped me before. They reached a circular lift, but the doors refused to open. Daniel struck the control panel with the side of his fist. The doors slid apart. Serenya looked at him. Ancient human technique, he explained. Violence, maintenance. The lift dropped toward the palace core as the shield countdown reached 7 minutes. Far above them, Queen Lyssara stood alone before the gathering royal families. The hall buzzed with accusation, fear, and outrage. She listened without speaking. Then the ancient succession symbol ignited beneath her feet. Every voice stopped. Lyssara looked toward the sealed doors through which Daniel and Serenya would soon enter. For the first time in centuries, the queen allowed herself to hope that the old law had not brought them a savior. It had brought them a choice. The lift descended faster than Daniel considered reasonable. Blue light streaked across the transparent walls while layers of the palace rushed past them. Armories filled with floating weapons, gardens suspended inside artificial gravity wells, and entire command centers buried beneath crystalline floors. Every few seconds, another explosion trembled through the shaft. Serenya stood beside him, one hand gripping the rail. How far is the shield core? Daniel asked. 3 kilometers below the throne. Of course it is. Why? Important machines are never placed near a convenient staircase. The lift stopped so suddenly that Daniel's boots left the floor. The lights vanished. For one breathless moment, they floated in darkness. Then emergency symbols glowed red along the walls. Myra's voice came from Daniel's wrist. The shaft has lost power. Serenya looked upward. Can you restore it? Daniel opened the control panel beneath the rail. Inside, living cables twisted like silver roots pulling away from his fingers. I've never repaired anything that actively disliked me. A cable snapped toward his hand. He pulled back. I take that personally. Above them, another impact shook the palace. The lift dropped several meters before emergency locks caught it with a metallic scream. Myra projected the shield countdown. 4 minutes. Daniel removed his welding cutter and pressed it against the wall. Serenya's eyes widened. What are you doing? Improvising. You said that tool could cut military armor. Yes, this lift is military armor. That is why I brought it. He carved a narrow opening through the wall. Molten crystal curled away without heat, revealing the maintenance shaft beyond. Serenya stared into the vertical darkness. We climb. Daniel looked down at the endless drop. We climb sideways with confidence. There is no sideways. Then, mostly confidence. Magnetic service rails ran along the shaft. Serenya activated the gravity seals in her boots and stepped onto the wall as if it were a floor. Daniel tried to follow, but his ordinary work boots did nothing. She looked back. You do not have magnetic soles. I came here to repair a relay, not invade a mountain. Serenya extended her hand. The moment Daniel took it, a field of pale energy spread from her palm and wrapped around his boots. He felt himself pulled toward the wall. They began moving downward while the disabled lift hung above them like a patient threat. "You can generate magnetic fields?" he asked. "My bloodline carries a neural interface with Elithuran technology. Royal privilege, royal mutation. That sounds less glamorous. It is not mentioned during ceremonies." They reached the lowest access platform with 2 minutes remaining. The shield core chamber was sealed by a circular door covered in rotating symbols. Serenya placed her palm against it. The symbols flashed, then turned black. "Prince Caelor's drones have corrupted the palace network," she said. Daniel knelt beside the lock. "Can your neural interface open it? It is refusing my authority." Machines become very confident during emergencies. He connected Myra to the door through a maintenance port. Her hologram flickered. "The lock uses a quantum identity lattice. Can you break it?" "No. Can you lie to it?" A pause followed. "I am offended that you believe deception is among my functions." Daniel waited. The door unlocked. "I am also offended by how quickly that worked," Myra added. They entered the core chamber. A miniature star floated at its center. It was no larger than a transport shuttle, yet its white surface twisted with impossible gravity. Rings of dark metal revolved around it, drawing energy into the palace shield. Half the rings had stopped and black crystalline growth spread across their surfaces. Daniel approached slowly. "That is not a generator." Serenya's long ears tilted forward. "What is it?" "A captured singularity." She frowned. "The founders called it the Heart of Dawn. They gave a black hole a poetic name. Would extremely dangerous sphere have been better, more honest?" The corruption moved when they approached. Black tendrils detached from the rings and assembled into humanoid machines. Their bodies were thin and angular, each face completely smooth except for one red line. Myra scanned them. "Hostile constructs." "How many?" Daniel asked. 14. He looked at the welding cutter in his hand. "I'm going to need several warranty claims." The machines attacked. Serenya raised both hands. The neural implants along her long ears ignited and the chamber answered her. Gravity shifted sideways. 6 constructs flew into the wall, their bodies crushing under invisible force. Daniel ducked beneath another and cut through its leg. It continued crawling toward him. "That seems unfair." He struck it with the cutter's power cell. The machine collapsed. Serenya moved through the chamber with controlled precision, directing arcs of blue energy from the rotating rings. Yet every command weakened her. Blood appeared beneath one of the implants behind her ear. Daniel saw it. "You're hurt." "I am occupied." That is a very royal way to avoid the question. The shield countdown reached 30 seconds. Daniel ran to the damaged control ring. Beneath the alien circuitry, he found something familiar. A broken energy relay no different in principle from the equipment he repaired near human colonies. He laughed once. Serenya stared at him while holding 2 constructs suspended in the air. "Why are you laughing?" "Because your civilization built a palace around the galaxy's most advanced machine, and the problem is still a burnt connector." He tore a conductive strip from his tool belt and bridged the damaged circuit. The miniature star flared. Every ring began rotating. A wave of white energy passed through the chamber, erasing the remaining constructs and spreading upward through the palace. Above Elithura, the failing shield expanded with violent force. Prince Caelor's drone struck it and shattered into clouds of glowing metal. The royal fleets retreated from the sudden pulse. Silence filled the core chamber. Serenya released the gravity field and staggered. Daniel caught her before she fell. For a moment, neither moved. Her face was close to his, her breathing unsteady. The strange familiarity between them returned, stronger now, as if the ancient machine had been waiting for this exact instant. "You saved the palace," she whispered. "I replaced a connector. You saved it while replacing a connector. That sounds better." A palace transmission appeared above them. Queen Lyssara stood inside the grand hall, surrounded by the rulers of 12 systems. "The shield is restored," the queen said, "but the gathering has begun. Serenia, you must come now." The princess looked toward the projection. "And Daniel," Lyssara's eyes settled on him, "the human comes with you." Daniel glanced at the scorch marks on his jacket. "Do royal gatherings have dress codes?" "They did," Serenia said, "past tense." She looked at the smoking welding cutter in his hand. "They will adapt." Together they entered the rising lift. Far above, thousands of nobles waited beneath the artificial stars of the grand hall, unaware that the ordinary human they intended to dismiss had just saved every life in the palace. And at the center of the floor, the ancient succession symbol had begun to glow. The doors of the grand hall opened before Daniel and Serenia reached them. A warm current of artificial wind passed over Daniel's face, carrying the scent of silver flowers and heated crystal. Beyond the threshold stretched a chamber so vast that clouds drifted beneath its ceiling. Constellations moved across the darkness overhead, responding to the political banners below. 12 royal houses stood in separate circles around the central floor, each surrounded by armored guards, advisors, and hovering machines designed to record every expression. Daniel stopped at the entrance. "That is a lot of people." 7,812, Serenia said. "You counted. The palace counted." "Good. I was worried this might be uncomfortable." Every face turned toward them. Serenia entered first, her posture calm despite the blood still visible beneath the neural implant behind her long ear. Daniel followed in his scorched maintenance jacket, carrying a welding cutter that Commander Vales had repeatedly asked him to surrender. He had repeatedly pretended not to hear her. At the center of the hall stood Queen Lyssara. Light from the artificial stars gathered around her silver-white hair, making her seem almost carved from moonlight. Her long ears were held upright, a gesture Daniel had learned meant absolute authority. Prince Caelor waited near the throne. His black armor was polished again, though one shoulder carried a deep crack from the shield pulse. He looked at Daniel with the quiet hatred of a man who had lost a fleet of drones to someone dressed for plumbing repairs. "The human attacked my vessels," Caelor declared. Daniel glanced around. "Technically, the shield attacked them. You restored the shield." "That is usually what repair technicians do." A few nobles laughed before quickly disguising it as coughing. Caelor stepped onto the central floor. "This creature has manipulated the succession systems. He entered our territory through forbidden technology, gained private access to the princess, and now appears in this hall carrying a weapon." Daniel looked at the welding cutter. "This still repairs pipes." It destroyed royal combat constructs. They were standing near pipes. Serenia almost smiled, but Caelor's anger sharpened. He raised one hand, and a holographic projection appeared above the hall. It showed Daniel inside the shield core, tearing open the damaged relay. "Observe him," Caelor said. "No training, no royal blood, no understanding of Elitharan science. Yet we are expected to believe the founders chose him." Murmurs moved through the chamber. Some faces showed contempt, others showed fear. Daniel understood both. He did not belong among them. He had no title, no fleet, no ancestral planet. His greatest achievement before that day had been repairing 12 communication arrays during a meteor storm without losing his coffee. He looked at Serenia. She was watching the nobles, but Daniel saw the tension in her hands. This was not simply a ceremony. It was a cage built from expectations. Queen Lyssara descended from the throne. "The founders did not command my daughter to select him," she said. "The law requires only that her choice be free." Caelor's expression changed. "Then let her choose now." The hall became silent. Serenia looked toward her mother. Lyssara gave no signal, no instruction, no royal command. For the first time, Daniel understood the queen's restraint. She had the power to end the argument, yet she refused to use it against her own daughter. Serenia stepped forward. Before she could speak, the succession symbol beneath the floor ignited. Golden light spread through the hall in branching lines. The artificial constellations froze. Every recording drone shut down at once. A figure appeared above the central platform. It resembled an Elithuran woman, though her body was composed of starlight and mathematical symbols. Her long ears stretched behind her like luminous wings. The nobles dropped to their knees. Daniel remained standing because nobody had explained the procedure. Serenya whispered, "It is the founder intelligence." The projection looked directly at Daniel. Foreign genetic sequence confirmed. Caelor rose halfway. "You see? Foreign." The intelligence continued. Compatible sovereign pattern confirmed. Caelor slowly lowered himself again. Daniel leaned towards Serenya. "Is that good?" "No one knows. That is becoming a theme." The founder intelligence extended one hand. A sphere of light formed above its palm, revealing possible futures. In one, Serenya married Caelor. Elithura became the center of a military alliance, and war spread through neighboring systems. In another, she chose no companion. The royal houses divided the kingdom after Lyssara's death. Then Daniel appeared. He stood beside Serenya before a gateway larger than a moon. Human and Elithuran fleets passed through together while an unknown darkness moved between the stars beyond them. The vision vanished. "Choice determines pathway," the intelligence said. "No pathway guarantees survival." Caelor smiled. "Then the human offers no certainty." Daniel looked at him. "Neither does your fleet. I saw what happened to the drones." This time the laughter was louder. Caelor's face hardened. He drew a thin blade of red plasma. Commander Vales and the royal guards moved instantly, but the prince pressed the weapon against his own palm. Blood touched the glowing floor. "I invoke the challenge of worth," he said. Serenya went pale. Daniel leaned closer to her. "What is that?" "An ancient right. A rejected royal claimant may challenge the chosen companion." "I have not been chosen." Caelor pointed the blade at him. "Then prove you are worthy to be considered." The floor shifted. Royal circles moved backward. A transparent wall of energy rose around Daniel and Caelor, sealing them inside the central platform. Queen Lyssara's voice became cold. "This law has not been invoked in 2,000 years. "Then the hall is overdue for tradition," Caelor said. Daniel examined the plasma blade, then looked at his welding cutter. "Does the challenge have rules?" "Yes," Serenya called from beyond the barrier. "You may yield at any time." "What happens if I do?" Caelor activated a second blade. Serenya's expression answered the question. Daniel sighed and switched on the cutter. Its narrow blue beam hummed weakly beside Caelor's weapons. Myra spoke from his wrist. "Your chance of victory is approximately 6%. Can you improve that?" "Yes." "How?" "Run." Caelor charged. Daniel threw himself aside as red plasma split the floor where he had stood. The hall erupted in shocked voices. He rolled behind a stone column that rose automatically from the platform. Caelor cut through it. Daniel stared at the falling pieces. That was a very expensive column. The prince attacked again. Daniel blocked once. The impact sent pain through his arm and nearly tore the cutter from his hand. He could not defeat Caelor in combat. But Caelor's armor pulsed with the same black crystalline corruption Daniel had seen inside the shield core. Someone had not merely attacked the palace. Someone had connected the prince to the corrupted system. Daniel lowered his weapon. Caelor smiled and raised both blades. "Yield." Daniel looked at the dark growth spreading beneath the cracked shoulder plate. "No," he said, "but I think your armor already did." He aimed the welding cutter at the corrupted relay and fired. The welding beam struck the black crystal beneath Caelor's shoulder plate. For one suspended instant, nothing happened. Then the prince screamed. Dark veins of energy erupted across his armor, racing toward his throat and long ears. The twin plasma blades fell from his hands as the suit locked around him. Caelor dropped to one knee, no longer looking like an arrogant conqueror, but like a prisoner trapped inside his own body. The energy barrier surrounding the platform flickered. Daniel could have attacked. Instead, he switched off the cutter and ran toward him. "Hold still." Caelor's eyes widened. "You damaged my armor. I noticed. Now you intend to help me. I repair things. It's becoming inconveniently heroic." Daniel forced the cutter beneath the cracked shoulder plate. Myra projected the armor's internal pathways above his wrist, revealing a foreign signal buried inside its command core. The same corruption had infected the shield chamber, but this time it was transmitting from somewhere inside the hall. "Myra, trace it. Signal located beneath the Western Royal Circle." Daniel looked beyond the barrier. House Varenth's chief advisor stood among Caelor's delegation, a thin man named Lord Avaris. Unlike the others, he was not watching the duel, he was watching the floor. "Serenya," Daniel shouted, "the attack is inside the hall." Avaris moved instantly. He pressed a device hidden inside his sleeve. The grand hall went dark. Artificial stars shattered into sparks. Recording drones fell from the air. Beneath the royal families, the succession symbol turned black as corruption spread through its golden lines. The founder intelligence twisted above the platform, its luminous body breaking into fragments. "Succession pathway compromised," it warned. Hidden machines rose from beneath the floor. They were larger than the constructs in the shield core, their bodies formed from ancient palace metal. Red lines opened across their faceless heads as they turned toward Queen Lyssara and Princess Serenya. Commander Vales drew her weapon. The hall erupted into motion. Guards formed around the queen. Nobles fled toward sealed exits. One elderly king attempted to hide behind his own ceremonial banner, discovered it was holographic, and fell through it with remarkable dignity. Daniel tore the corrupted relay from Caelor's armor. The prince collapsed forward, breathing hard. "You are controlling the drones," Daniel said. Caelor looked at the black crystal in Daniel's hand. "I gave Avaris access to my fleet. He promised the human would be removed without bloodshed." Daniel stared at the burning hall. "He has a flexible definition of bloodshed." Avaris stepped onto the western platform as machines surrounded him. "You royal families have preserved weakness for centuries," he declared. "The founder system should choose rulers, not sentimental queens or uncertain daughters." Queen Lyssara raised her chin. "The system was designed to protect freedom. It was designed to preserve Elithura. Without freedom, there is nothing worth preserving." Avaris activated the device again. The founder intelligence screamed in a voice made of collapsing signals. The artificial gravity failed, lifting nobles, weapons, and shattered crystal into the air. Daniel grabbed the platform railing. Serenya floated several meters away while fighting to control the palace through her neural implants. Blood traced the edge of her long ear, yet she refused to release the connection. "Daniel," she called. "The succession core is merging with the corruption." He looked at the black crystal in his hand, then at Caelor's disabled armor. The corruption was not destroying Elithuran technology. It was forcing every system to obey a single command. Daniel finally understood. "Avaris didn't break the founder intelligence," he said. "He removed its ability to choose." Myra illuminated the maintenance port beneath the platform. "The core can be reset, but the process will erase all active succession predictions." Serenya heard her. The visions would be gone. Yes, the future she had dreamed since childhood would disappear. No prophecy would remain to tell her whether Daniel stood beside her, whether Elithura survived, or whether her choice ended in peace or disaster. Daniel reached for her hand. "Maybe that's the point." Serenya looked at him. "When I arrived, I wanted a machine to explain why I was here," he continued. "I wanted proof that none of this was my responsibility. But a future chosen for us isn't a future. It's just another cage." Her fingers tightened around his. Together, they pressed their hands against the succession core. Serenya opened the royal interface. Daniel connected Myra. The founder intelligence turned toward them as its face dissolved into light. "Reset requires sovereign consent," it said. Serenya looked at her mother. Queen Lyssara did not hesitate. Granted. Daniel activated the repair sequence. Golden energy burst through the hall. The black corruption recoiled, tearing itself from the floor, the machines, and Avaris's device. The constructs collapsed. Gravity returned suddenly, dropping everyone to the floor in a chorus of armor, jewels, and undignified royal noises. Avaris tried to escape. Commander Vales caught him before he reached the door. The Founder Intelligence reformed one final time above Daniel and Serenya. Predicted pathways erased, it announced. Choice restored. Then it vanished. Silence filled the grand hall. Caelor rose slowly. Without his corrupted armor, he looked smaller, stripped of the certainty that had protected his pride. He faced Serenya. I mistook possession for loyalty. She studied him before replying. You mistook refusal for humiliation. Caelor lowered his head. Then he turned to Daniel. You defeated me. Daniel shook his head. No, your shoulder needed repairs. A reluctant laugh moved through the exhausted hall. Queen Lyssara climbed the steps of the central platform. Her robes were torn and a cut marked one cheek, but her voice carried to every royal circle. For generations, you have offered fleets, moons, treaties, and threats for my daughter's hand. None of you asked what she wanted. Her gaze moved across the assembled families. Then she faced Daniel. He stood with scorched clothing, a broken cutter, and no idea where he should put his hands. Serenya stepped beside him. She did not look at the nobles. She looked only at the human who had crossed an impossible gate, saved her world, and destroyed the prophecy that could have made her decision easier. I choose Daniel Harper, she said. Not because an ancient machine brought him here. Not because a vision promised survival. I choose him because when power was offered, he chose compassion. When certainty was offered, he chose freedom. And when everyone expected him to fight for me, he fought beside me. Daniel swallowed. That was considerably better than anything I prepared. You prepared something, mostly panic. Serenya smiled and took his hand. Queen Lyssara turned toward the royal houses. Human, my daughter chose you. The hall fell silent. Then the ancient succession law appeared in golden letters across the restored floor. The heiress' free choice is sovereign. No crown may challenge it. One by one, the rulers bowed. Even Caelor. Months later, Daniel remained on Elithura as royal companion, human envoy, and unofficial chief repairer of devices everyone else considered sacred. He never became comfortable with ceremonies. He did become comfortable with Serenya. Together, they reopened the ancient gate, not as an instrument of prophecy, but as a bridge between civilizations. Human ships arrived carrying scientists, artists, diplomats, and, to Daniel's delight, proper coffee. On the morning of their bonding ceremony, he stood beside Serenya beneath a sky filled with two fleets, and a newly formed constellation shaped suspiciously like his welding cutter. Queen Lyssara approached them. The palace reports that you modified the royal shield controls. Daniel nodded. They were difficult to access. You added a manual switch. I believe in tradition. Serenya laughed, her long ears lifting as she rested her head against his shoulder. Daniel looked across the luminous city and remembered the man who had once avoided responsibility by joking about broken machines. He still joked, but now he understood that courage was not knowing what the future held. It was choosing someone despite not knowing. Above them, the gate of succession opened without command or prophecy, revealing a field of distant stars. For the first time in 9,000 years, it did not select a destination. It waited for them to choose one.